In this video, I'll be going over what your most played game says about you. Let's get started. If your most played game is Fortnite, you're one of two types of people. Either you play for fun and don't take the game too seriously, which props to you. You play what you like and I respect it. Or you haven't seen the sun in days and you're just waiting for your next shot at a cash cup. Most Fortnite players I come across tend to be kinda toxic. Now, whether or not that carries into your real life, that's up to you. If your most played game is Overwatch, there's a lot of possibilities for the type of player you are. If you main tank, you don't care that your class is probably the weakest in the game. You love what you do and you do it well. Tank players are some of the chillest people, in-game and IRL. If you main DPS, there's a lot that can be said about you, but primarily for the most part, you just have the most fun with it. Most DPS players I know find tank and support boring, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of you can be pretty sweaty, but overall, I'd say the majority of you aren't too toxic. If you main support, your class is definitely not overpowered. Everyone on Twitter is wrong. Please don't hurt me. For real though, if you play support, you may have a bit of a god complex, as well as most of the supports I've met have either been incredibly wholesome or the most toxic people on the game, no in between. If your most played game is Minecraft, I have nothing negative to say. Great game with a great community, most of the time. You're probably relatively creative if this is your main game. Most of the people I know who regularly play have made some amazing things. There's so much variety in what you can do, whether that be speedrunning, PvP servers, free building, the list goes on and on. Very chill community, even the people who play competitively. If your most played game is Rocket League, you have the mental fortitude of a god. Getting good at this game takes so incredibly long and the skill ceiling is extremely high. Most Rocket League players who play regularly have a pretty short temper. I don't blame you though. Rocket League, especially 1v1s, can be super rage-inducing. From the freestylers to the rank grinders to the casual players, you all have my respect for maining such a unique and difficult game. The toxicity can get pretty bad in this game though, but that's true for a majority of multiplayer games, so I guess I can't complain. If your most played game is Dead by Daylight, which I have a hunch it is for most of you, there's a lot of different things that could be said about you. One thing or another made you fall in love with this game. Whether it was a specific content creator, the asymmetrical gameplay it provided, or seeing your favorite movie villain appear as a killer. Either way, you've probably been around for a minute in this community. You have a lot of resilience if this is your most played game, since it's been through so many changes and developments. Some good, others not so much. Regardless, there's a good chance that this game will be remembered by you for a very long time, since people who play this game that much tend to stay consistent for quite a while. Last thing I'll say about it is, please stop playing Skull Merchant. If your most played game is Hunt Showdown, you have an insane amount of patience. This game, similar to others on this list, is extremely unforgiving. The fact that you can lose all of the high tier gear and time you've spent on a character in an instant is insane. You gotta be a pretty level-headed person to main this game, or at the minimum just be really good at it. You're also probably relatively good at the other games you play too, since the gunplay in this game is pretty difficult. If your most played game is Black Ops 3, then there's a good chance most of that is from zombies. This game is a classic, and most people, no matter what they play now, have probably played this game. Whether it was the campaign, multiplayer, or zombies, this game is known by almost everyone. To still be playing it to this day, or still have this game hold the title for most hours you've played, is pretty impressive. Most of the people who play that much focus on high rounds or Easter eggs on zombie maps, and both take a pretty high amount of skill and focus to do properly. Again, you're probably pretty decent at the other games you play, since this game requires more effort than most to be good at. You also probably don't have much free time, considering how much time this game can take you. If your most played game is Rainbow Six Siege, you are definitely toxic, or at least can be at times. This is the only game I've ever played where 100% of the community has at least some toxicity in them, which I'm not dissing. This is one of my main games too, so I get it. If you still play, it could be for a number of reasons. I know a lot of people came back to the game because of Jinxie, which isn't a bad thing. He kind of revived the game. Last thing I have to say about the people who play this game is be nicer to your friends. Little Timmy did not deserve the wrath he received for losing that 1v2. If your most played game is VR Chat, to be honest, there's no real generalization I could come up with. The amount of people on this game is insane, and there's so many different types of people. I haven't played in a very long time, but I've met some pretty good friends on there that I still know to this day. The community can be very positive if you go to the right places. I know this game has a bad rap for multiple reasons, but I genuinely do think it can be a fun experience if you know where to look. Also, the amount of time some people have put into this game is kind of insane. If your most played game is Lethal Company, that's really impressive since the game just came out. Regardless, I can't hate you for it. This game is so much fun, especially modded. I myself have nearly put 100 hours into this game already. Like many others, you probably hopped into this game because of the trend and its huge popularity. Not quite sure what to expect. Personally, I had no idea what I was getting into when I first started, but it's been some of the most fun I've had on a game in a while. You definitely also have the ability to turn into a 5-star voice actor because of this game, and your friends probably do too. If your most played game is Among Us, really? In 2024? I mean, shit, you do you, I guess. There's a good chance you have a friend group that still plays, which I get. It can be pretty fun with a good enough group of friends. 2020 in quarantine was probably one of your favorite times, since Among Us was definitely at its peak then. And that's really when everyone was playing. And the content boomed on YouTube for it. People who are good at this game always scare me though, because it's basically saying I'm phenomenal at lying and manipulating. You just gotta hope you never use that on your friends outside of the game. If your most played game is any of the Forza games, specifically Forza Horizon 5, you're definitely into cars outside of the game. A lot of the people I know who play this game are insane at it, one way or another, whether that be drifting, racing, or any of the other impressive things you can do in this game. Definitely a laid-back person IRL, and you most likely don't tilt too easily, which I respect. Not a lot of you out there though, at least from what I've seen. I don't know if I've ever met someone whose most played game has been Forza, but it's definitely been up there. If your most played game is Counter-Strike, you think you're superior to everyone who plays Valorant. But to be fair, Valorant players think the reverse, so it balances out. You've probably spent an unhealthy amount of money on cases, but I can't really blame you for it, since I've probably spent just as much on other games. Only difference is, I can't sell my skins. The CSGO community, although toxic, can be pretty funny at times, at least as a bystander. The clips from this game are hilarious, and it's barely ever because of the gameplay itself.
On your man, homie. Ah, I tried to sneak through the door, man. Can't make it. Can't make it. The shit's stuck. Out of my way, son! Door stuck! Door stuck! Please! I beg you!
If your most played game is any of the Souls games, like Elden Ring, you have an insane amount of dedication. I've only ever tried one of these games once and it was insane. The skill floor is extremely high and the skill ceiling even higher. You may have a bit of a superiority complex to others who play easier games, which, fair, you are playing one of the hardest games, at least to my knowledge. If your most played game is War Thunder, the ads finally got you. Aside from just being the game that sponsors every creator ever, it actually seems like a pretty fun game. From what I've seen my friends play, it's a very tactical game, not as fast and high-paced as some of the other more popular games out there, but still offers a crazy amount of different ways to play. Oh, and no, I'm not sponsored. You're probably a bit more methodical with how you play and what you do, due to the nature of this game. Or not, and you just blow everything up, which I also respect. If your most played game is GTA 5, it's almost most definitely because of the online mode. There's one of two reasons that this is your most played. You either really like the grind, getting all the weapons, cars, businesses, etc., or you love blowing everything up. Other players, people moving cargo, any vehicle you see, and it's all you've done the past 1,000 hours. Although I will say though, to work on a cargo load for 2 months and lose it all to some 10-year-old on a flying bike doesn't really make the game too enjoyable, at least in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with the type of people who play this game, it's just I've definitely encountered nicer people than you guys in other games. If your most played game is any of the modern CODs, I don't necessarily understand why you've put this many hours into the same copy-pasted game from 2019, but I respect it. A lot of the COD players are chill, but there's a lot of range with the type of person. From 40-year-old dads hopping on after work, to little Jimmy excited to scream the new word he just learned at the top of his lungs. You're either genuinely chill to be around, or the exact opposite. All I gotta say is please take the game a tiny bit less seriously. Not all of you, but some of you. Sometimes your teammates really are just playing the game to have fun, and that's okay. If your most played game is Rust, I get it. I've sank so many hours into this god-awful game that anyone who's done the same will agree. It sucks, but we still love it regardless. If this is your main game, you can be toxic. Regardless of how nice of a person you are, to play this game is to be some level of toxic. You'd be surprised too. Sometimes some of the nicest people you've ever met you can't even recognize after they lose a gear set to a door camper. I've been there, and if you've played the game, you've been there too. If Rust is your most played game, you're either still in school, unemployed, or it's literally your job to play. You need an insane amount of free time to play this game, and even more dedication to stay at it with all the BS you encounter. Last thing I'll say is some of you are vile. The things I've seen in the Rust Global chat cannot be rivaled by any other game's toxicity. Please go outside if you're one of these people. If your most played game is The Finals, that's also really impressive, since it's yet another game that just came out. The Finals is an extremely fun game, so I don't blame you. The movement, gunplay, and everything else involved makes it such a fun, fast-paced experience. If it's already your most played game, you probably came from Apex or another movement type shooter. You most likely play with friends too, as playing this game solo queue can be kinda brutal. And the people I have encountered in solo queue haven't always been the nicest. I get it though, this game can be infuriating at times. Regardless, it's always easy to come back to for the fun, fast-paced nature of it. Mild flash warning till the time posted on screen. If your most played game is Terraria, you have amazing taste in games. Terraria has so much to offer as a game, both vanilla and modded, you can't ever run out of things to do. There's so much variety in the type of people who play Terraria, but one thing I think you all have in common is a pretty high amount of skill in your respective area. The builders in this game have made absolute masterpieces, and the people who have done flawless runs on some of the hardest bosses are absolutely insane. Especially the speedrunners too. Every area and group does what they do to the highest degree, which I really respect. Terraria will definitely go down as one of the best sandbox games ever made, and I think it definitely deserves the hype. If your most played game is Ark Survival, I personally don't get it, but you like what you like and I respect it. It does make sense that Ark is your most played game though, since it takes a crazy amount of time to progress through. One thing that I will give props for is the dinos. Kinda sick you can tame a giant ass T-Rex and ride it into battle. One thing I will say is you don't need the amount of defense you think you do. The amount of turrets you have set up on your base would be enough to take down an actual army. I promise you don't need that many, you're not gonna get raided. You probably think Ark is better than Rust, but it's only fair since Rust players think they're the superior game too. Like Rust players, you definitely have a lot of time on your hands. Enough time to build massive bases, take on massive bosses, and have a horde of pet dinos. If your most played game is Valorant, you think you're better than CSGO players. Or there's a chance you don't even know CSGO exists. There's a lot to be said about Valorant players. They have an interesting community, to say the least. To be completely honest, I'd rather be screamed at in some other game than listen to a gent talk in a deep-ass voice to his e-kitten through game chat. If you're a normal Valorant player, nothing bad to say about you. It can be a pretty fun game, especially with friends. If you're the e-dater, matching names, deep voice, Discord kitten type of Valorant player, please shower, go outside, talk to real people. It's a dark place to be in, trust me, I know. Just see the sun a bit more often, I promise it'll help. If your most played game is Geometry Dash, it's definitely by an insane amount of hours. Like other games on this list, this one takes forever to beat the harder levels and to get really good at. You have an insane amount of patience and most likely have the ability to be pretty good at any other game you play because of Geometry Dash. Playing this game creates really good practice habits for other games and a really good mindset you can apply to any other game you want to get good at. Some of the levels in this game are works of art too. If you're one of the creators of this game, I have an insane amount of respect for what you do. If your most played game is Project Zomboid, you definitely have a group of friends you play it with. It's an extremely fun, immersive zombie game that you probably get a little bit too immersed into, which definitely isn't a bad thing. 90% of you are also terrible drivers in-game, or maybe I'm just projecting. I don't know bro, it's hard. Either way, you're definitely a chill person with little to no toxicity in you. You gotta be a certain level of laid back to main a PvE top-down game, which I really respect. Great game with an even greater community. If your most played game is For Honor, you have insane reaction speed, on top of an even more insane amount of patience. I've tried to play this game, and every single time I've tried, I've rage quit. Literally the only game to ever make me stop playing it out of anger. But to be honest, it's probably just a skill issue. You're definitely built different in some way if you main this game. I'd be terrified to ever face you in this game, or to be honest, any game that you've had enough time to do as much as learn the controls in. Insane players, but also very toxic players. Can't blame you though. Beating someone in a 1v1 in this game can be disrespectful as hell depending on how you do it. If your most played game is Escape from Tarkov, you got some pretty crazy knowledge about guns and ammo, simply from just playing the game. The amount of different interactions with different ammos, guns, and armor is insane. Aside from the players that just sit in bushes with snipers, most of the community seems pretty chill, especially with proximity chat. The interaction I've seen from people using proximity chat have been crazy funny, and overall, everyone seems to enjoy the game in a healthy way. If your most played game is Apex Legends, you are a movement god, and probably an aim god too. This game does take a decent bit of time to get good at, but once you have it down, it feels amazing. You probably listen to rap in some way or another, and definitely watch people like Fade and Asu. Lots of Apex players are very toxic, but a lot of them are also really chill, so it balances out. You probably take the game really seriously, but personally, I think that's fine, since it's one of the games that if you can get good enough at it, you can make a lot of money off of it. Let me know down in the comments what your most played game is, and make sure to leave a like if you agreed with any of them. Now, go watch this video.